Those of you, maybe still following along, saying, wow, this game looks miserably complex. It is a complex game in the base game. I've added so much to it that it's even more painful to do it this way. Trump is my big problem, though. I mentioned this last time. I'm looking at him and I'm just like, he's got, some good value as a character. Certainly outranks the bottom three point-wise. But I can't figure out how to, in any sense, reflect the reality of Trump. The fact that, he just seems to seize upon this nerve in the way that you would say a populist would, but populists don't get much in this game. There's just no way that I can come up with to reflect what sort of effect he has, because it's really a national television effect, which is something that didn't exist as much when this game was created. You didn't have candidates making, multiple appearances a week or whatever on television and stating their point of view. And you didn't have broad-based surrogates like Rush Limbaugh or whatever, at least pushing the point, the topics that that candidates were pushing for in the same way either. So in a sense, Trump kind of aligns best with that side of things, and there's nothing in the game that handles that, and I don't think that it can be reflected in the game very easily. All right, well, be that as it may, and I feel like I have to limit his money because he's unwilling to throw his own money in and unwilling to take contributions. And I just don't know what he can do with that, because campaign contributions isn't some issue in the game or anything. So I'll just roll a die for him, I guess. I think a surrogate doesn't even really help him that much. That's the problem. I'll just keep playing him along. I think he's got no chance in this. And we'll just roll dice and see where he goes, So he can take up to a yellow line, and he's got bonuses. Wow, he likes Florida. He's got the jobs issue still. Not a hell of a lot of that, though. So I don't know how much. He likes Kentucky. I don't know if I gave him his full bonus there. What about Indiana? Indiana gives him his job bonus. Gives him an extra point here. He'll go into Indianapolis. And there he gets 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 votes in Indiana. And a little dot. Over to Carson. What's Carson playing around with? Carson likes the abortion issue right now. Really doesn't have anything else up on the board. He has this potential fundraiser there. Oh, he gets his $2. That'll help. What if I count on going where? What have I gotten? I've done my Alabama run. Utah would be nice. Remember, I can fly wherever I like because I'm doing my book tour. So yeah, what if we count on going to Utah? Which is only 6 electoral votes. So we can buy ourselves a ×2 multiplier there for just $2. And we're going to do that. And do we want to keep fundraising? I got this flow of cash coming in. I kind of like to use my surrogate to move. Get some votes in some of these other states. All right, well, I got an event. Women's group backs candidates. Pro-women's rights rating. Again, I don't think anybody is coming out in favor of things like Lilly Ledbetter or stuff like that. However, do I think there's a possibility that there? Yeah, I don't feel like there's a serious contender for this. I feel a little bit less opposed to this because there are certain groups that you could kind of fit this under, but they probably don't fit under the civil rights flag as much. So we're going to just discard this as irrelevant to the campaign. And my little red thing doesn't take me very many places. If I use a 1 for this, I can't get anywhere particularly good. Which means to me, I'm going to go and use the 2 here, going into Pennsylvania, New Jersey. I'm going to split that 4 and 3. I don't know why, but... So, we find Pennsylvania here. Oh, we've already got... I don't know if those are Pennsylvania or Oregon votes there. This is... I gotta say they gotta be Pennsylvania. But what from? I'm gonna have to look and see, because I think I miswrote those in terms of location. Fine, it came from me hitting Pittsburgh, actually. And now I was flying into Salt Lake City, and I only get 1 charisma bonus, which gives me to 5. And I think I had another bonus. Oh, +1 for Utah. That gets me up to 6. Did I have anything else? Yeah. My rating for abortion. 6. And any other... what was my anti-abortion? Call it 8. And now I channeled stuff into Utah. So I get 16 votes there. Now there's 2 ways to get organizations for free. One is visiting, I'm sorry, it's 5 times, not 3 times. The other is ending up with a total vote count that's 3 times the electoral vote of the state, which I don't know if anybody's got there. I mean, Alaska at 16, Cruz has himself an organization there now. He has a minimal organization. But that's something to pay attention to. If somebody starts amassing a bunch of votes in a place, the 5 times is painful to get an organization. You're probably better off just buying it, which kind of beats my... I thought Bush was going to be able to get this off of 3. So that puts us to Cruz, who, you know, I still have to try to figure out, okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? This is much easier when you're only playing one person at a time. It's the 6-player, you know, scenario, whatever, and higher. Really anything above 4 in solo play is really tough. So I have to try to guess where he best wants to land himself. But let's give him his internet money and then try to figure it out. He is my other guy with internet money, isn't he? Oh, YP Arena doesn't have any. All right. Cruz ran up to Wyoming. He already had some votes there. Put an organization in place and grabbed some more votes. He's looking Montana's good for him to go to because he gets his anti-environment ratings there. Colorado, he wants to go there once as well. Might priority flight there. He paid to go into the one. It's kind of cool because he also got $10 matched in dark money, of course. If you start looking unacceptable, though, those dark money bonuses disappear. Fiorina started a new surrogate in California and spent most of her money on that. Made a roll and then got this. Charisma plus 2 dice can roll a new issue or pay $1 to revive a lapsed issue. So, we make quick rolls for all the characters. Trump is going to only be at 7. Carson is at 7. Cruz, nope. Fiorina is at 9. She's got this so far. Rubio's at 9. That means nobody's going to get this advantage. So now I've got to deal with her movement rolls, which is a 1 and a 3. She doesn't have the charisma to use a 3 effectively, but I may want to, well, no, I'm stuck out here. So Louisiana is a bonus for me. Have I concentrated at all there? Because if I haven't gone there, I probably want to. I have a couple of votes in Louisiana. They're probably my automatics. Now, I didn't buy any organization, but going into New Orleans seems like a valuable thing. So I'll take 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No, 8. Sorry, I only get once there. And nothing here. Up the third week in December with Rubio and Bush kind of doing lousy stuff. Rubio moving, he got a crappy roll into Georgia and getting 4 points. He was hoping to get a flight, maybe up near New Hampshire or something like that, try to score some points there. And Bush simply scoring some more points in California. He's up to 15. 15 is not going to win California, and I don't know what he's doing, hoping to, build an organization there on the cheap or something. It's worth, there are a couple of states, the bigger states, if you visit them a lot, you score some points in them and you get your organization. But, if somebody's got big money like Cruz does, they can just buy that state, Okay, so as we finish up December, see, we have Trump kind of bumbling around. Carson flew into Iowa, set himself up an organization there, got some votes. It's a good place for him. With the early caucus, it's got some advantages. I don't remember why Iowa scored, why he particularly chose Iowa, other than the caucus. The abortion issue may have had a point there. Yeah, it gave him a rating value there, so he got his points there. A few. He's only got 2 off that. Cruz continues on his Let's Wander Through the West and Trash the Environment tour. And keeps fundraising, which is probably the huger thing. Fiorina kind of stumbling around here in Mississippi, scoring some decent votes in it, but no organization, nothing like that. Really no chance to be getting yourself in a powerful position. That's not a state you want to visit 5 times for an organization. It just happened that her roles worked out that way and getting some votes there. Rubio took a priority flight out to Colorado, pro-oil advantage. Cruz is going to fly in there probably next and debate the shit out of him. And then Bush starting to wander through here with the pro Hispanic rating that he has of Yeah, I'm not quite as anti-Hispanic as the rest of you. I married one. Now, obviously, Cruz and Rubio are both Hispanics, but they're seen as, well, Cruz is seen as more strongly anti-immigration or whatever, but Rubio kind of seen as a squish as it because of the initial stance that he took on the immigration bill, but then he sort of backed off of it that he's not going to get any support out of that. Bush comes the closest to getting support, but it's really not much because he can't stand out and really get in front of the issue. So that'll put us here where a number of people are losing their surrogates. They're going to have to probably rebuy them. And they can't buy a dark money surrogate. I'm not allowing that shit. And I guess that's it. Oh, abortion disappeared as an issue partway through the turn. Aging came up instead, and Carson got a free surrogate off of that. A bunch of Gray Panthers said, hey, he seems about right. Here we are in January, and I should be giving everybody $1 at this point. This is when I wanted to start the matching funds. I'll have to remember to do that. Cruz's surrogate ran out. He's going to have to buy another one. He has a huge war chest, though. Like I said, he flew into Colorado to debate Rubio. Rubio said, screw that, and took the 3-point hit instead. And Cruz didn't really have that much going for him here. He's got 12 votes, or 12 points in Colorado. It actually puts him in second place there. What else did we have? Well, Trump moving back into the Pennsylvania, New Jersey. There's a lot of points there. The problem is you got to make it through the matching funds time. Again, does that matter to him? I don't know. I kind of feel like he could just unleash the spigot if he's doing really well and, have so much money. But that would be his own money he'd be throwing into it for no great reason except pride, and it's hard to judge. Carson bought himself an organization in Nebraska so he could keep building up Iowa. Now, the problem with Iowa is it's a caucus. It's early and it's important and all that maybe, but it's only important to show up, really. It's not that vital to win Iowa. It doesn't do you a lot in terms of momentum. New Hampshire, on the other hand, can get you more money. You get $3 if you win it, 2 if you come in second, 1 if you come in third. So he actually sent one of his surrogates heading up that way to hit in the New Hampshire area, grabbed some points in Boston. This one's just fundraising for him right now. And then I got to do the other half still. On the back end, Fiorina goes up, debates Trump, and I think she scored some points on him there. I think yeah. And Rubio bought a priority again to Boston, thought Carson's idea of getting into getting some points in New Hampshire early seems like a good one. He'll go up there himself and debate whatever, And he flew in, did a debate, and then ended up a wash over there. And then Bush went into New Mexico where, again, he has a slight advantage for the Hispanics. So, not buying any organizational, though, because it's just not that important at this point. If other people start dropping out and everything, he may have enough votes or points down there just off of one visit that he's got an edge and maybe doesn't have to worry as much. We'll see. I think that's kind of a bad idea, but his plan is to actually get out of there and go fly maybe through the New Hampshire trip or whatever. Anyway, that puts us into the second week in January, and it makes it ready for bedtime for me. feel like Trump's ability is actually to spin a line of bullshit that somehow sells to cover anything, you know. So, like, whatever the issue is, oh, it's ISIS, I'll bomb the shit out of them. Okay, that's not really a strategy, but somehow it resonates so perfectly that I'm not quite sure what to say, but that, you know, like, if help for the elderly came up, he would say, "Oh, I'll give you the best, you know, the best Medicare that I can. You'll have, you know, gold standard in Social Security, man. It's gonna be it's just gonna be huge. You'll be staying in 5-star hotels. That's my plan. Actually, I read about this thing on the internet where, you know, you could, instead of managed care, you go on cruise ships." And that's what we're going to do instead. You know, what the hell? But it, like, somehow just works. It's like, and I don't know how to handle that. It's like he can take the most simplistic solution and sell it to the people. And, you know, it's playing to the lowest common denominator. I don't know how to represent that in the game. It's almost as though he can come up with a position on anything and just sell it through sheer charisma. At least in the debate positions, I feel like he should have some kind of... It's almost like he has a jack-of-all-trades skill. And I think that's what I'm going to give him. Hopefully it's not too late. Just like a JOT 1 or 2, but I don't even know how to represent it. I mean, wow. Trump's continuing his kind of bumbling way up through New York, getting some votes in there. Doesn't have a lot of money for organizations, so there's not much he can do. Carson, on the other hand, funneled money into an organization in New Hampshire, Missouri, and Kansas. Missouri and Kansas are kind of important. They're not real early, but I think they come in this Super Tuesday. And this is really the winnowing. This is where people have to have cash on hand to blast into those primaries and caucuses and or visit. They have to make sure they give votes in all the caucus states and that they place in most of the primary states. The caucuses are cheap to get into. The primary is a little harder. And the problem is if you miss 3 in a row, and it's always slated the worst possible for you, you're going to get cut off from your matching funds, but more importantly, your dark money, your internet money, all your bonuses that I'm going to allow in this game are just going to fade away if you can't maintain credibility as an across-the-board candidate. So, you know, if you miss, really, here we have the Nevada caucus. You can probably get into that. If you miss 2 of these, if you miss 3 of them, you're out, you know, for a while. If you miss 2 of them, you've got to make sure you get everything in the second week of March. Getting some votes in on these caucuses here is pretty easy. It's going to be tougher because you have to place in the first 3 places in New Hampshire and South Carolina. But that's not absolutely vital, right? Because you could actually fail in both of those as long as you get a 1 point into each of these caucuses. And, well, here's the problem. You've missed one here. Well, no, it's 3 in a row. So as long as you get into Nevada, you put a firewall on South Carolina. So it's no big deal to fail at these really early stage, which is kind of funny because really that's where the candidates express all their initial power, right? But if you have enough cash on hand, you can get into everything here. It's not trivial. So you're only allowed to spend $5 on advertising, although I may extend that with the dark money advantage. That gets you like 10 votes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. These are the primaries. No, 1, 2, 3, Yeah, they're the problem. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You got to get like 9 of those, you know, and you only have $10 to spend at once using an advertising fee. So you may have to actually pre-prepare for some of those, which means you can't just count on doing all these caucuses, you know, back here on the 4th turn of February. Remember, those are doubled within 3 turns of when they happen, and tripled for the primaries in the turn in which they happen. So that's kind of problematic. For Cruz, he had to blow a big wad of money here. He had a lot of money, $42 in the bank. I haven't rolled yet for his move, but he's going to fly into Washington. Huh. How's Oregon? I don't think he has anything that works in Oregon. But I think he's going to fly into Washington, get the maximal votes there. He built an organization there, and he started up a big fundraising surrogate. We got nothing too interesting coming there, just scoring. We had an interesting turn, which is one of these events that doesn't make an issue. It's unemployment plummets, even though jobs is an issue. All candidates subtract 3 times their job rating in current state and 1 times in each bordering state. Now this affected everybody who has a jobs rating. Fiorina, Rubio, and someone else did. Didn't they? Oh, Trump. And basically, yeah, whatever state they're in, they get potentially hosed in. Now nobody's got a huge jobs rating. I think the highest out there is a 1, so, you know. Their plans are pretty limited, to tell you the truth, and pretty insignificant seeming. They seem to be, yeah, I will be the jobs president. Yeah, okay. But if jobs are not that big an issue, it does reduce their kind of baseline support. It's not like, you know, it's that big a deal. It's just that there are more important issues. So you can't view these as actually proportions of the vote or anything like that. In fact, the fact that they can go negative indicates that. That if you have negative, it just probably means you have a tiny little slice of the total vote, which is why the proportionate systems and such that I'm using kind of actually work, even though they're special cases. So, for example, a lot of the states have a minimum. You have to have at least 10% of the total vote. Now, I think I worked that into my design. I don't remember. I can't find where I've got my sheets on that. I don't know if they've blown away. I know I had a little bit of air movement somewhere. Oh, here we go. Yeah, that you do have to break 10% of the total in order to score anything at all. But many of the states have higher percentages and other little mechanisms in there. What's important to realize is whatever numbers show up here are not your percentage of are not a share of the vote, as it were. All right, I gotta go away for a bit. Another bigger effect one. Schools required to teach Spanish, 5 times anti-Hispanic in every state, and 2 times in each bordering. This is huge for Trump especially, who gets a big bonus in the Northeast off of that, just because that's where he happens to be sitting. The strange thing about it is, you know, it's not kind of regionally decided, it's decided by where the candidate is. So like, in some cases the issues are more regional, but the idea that, like, you know, a big swath of the country has a strong anti-immigrant leaning right now, and that I'm using the anti-Hispanic for that, is kind of irrelevant. Again, you know, this was seen as more kind of a, you're going to affect, it's going to be seen as more of a local issue at the time where this was handled. Therefore, it's by candidate locality. But really, most of those local issues are also kind of nationally important, and they don't handle that. Then we had Rubio go up into New Hampshire. He built himself a big 3 times organization there. Started up a new fundraiser, not a very long-lasting one. He's got kind of money problems right now. He's down to $3, a decent amount of dark money, but he's just not raking it in the way Cruz is. It looks like he's going to be dropping out fairly soon. Well, dropping out of, the big money contention. Cruz is just rocking right now. And he forced Carson Surrogate to back down there from a debate. One way to validate Trump, although I've kind of based some of the other charisma ratings on debate performance, for example, especially Fiorina there. Carson, I don't feel like he comes across terribly powerfully in the debates, but he seems to strike a chord with whatever he's saying with a certain population. But Trump seems to be really good at just coming in and slamming someone and coming up with a one-liner in the debate situation. So I'm going to, actually, here's how I'm going to make his special ability. And I have no idea how to evaluate this point-wise, but I'm going to say he can use his charisma as a bonus in debates. Full bonus? I don't know. That's maybe too much, say half bonus. So I'm going to give him just a +2 bonus in debates from now on. For his ability to just come up with the zinger, come up with the way of sort of seeming like he's shaming someone else in some way. And here we have another one of these that's gotten a little loose. It still sticks, but it only after I pressed it down a little. So anyway, he's in a position up against the Jebster there after moving into Massachusetts. And I don't think, let me see, defense education for, I don't think Jeb has any points going for him, whereas Trump has at least 3, with his jobs point. And that looks like all that he has going for him. Because I don't feel like it has so much to do with issues as his ability to just reach to the lowest common denominator, not have to stick to any kind of reasonable strategy or whatever. So I'm just going to give him a +2 on debates. That makes him very dangerous coming into contested areas as he is right now, where he might scare everyone else off. And that can be a huge advantage in this game. So that's going to be, at least for now, the special ability that I give him. With a 3-point bonus, it's probably worthwhile for Jeb to decline to debate. That new fear of Trump situation has scattered people to the winds. Fiorina flying back, going back down to Pennsylvania, New Jersey, rather than plunging into, where she could be debated. Likewise, we're seeing Bush going out into Missouri. He has an organization in New Hampshire, but he has a lot of dark money. He can just start channeling that crap through real hard. Next turn is the first turn that money's doubled anywhere. That's going to be in Iowa. Not a huge deal, but, as to who wins Iowa, but, it's got a few, it's got 6 electoral votes. That's not terrible, but the biggie here is not the boost in money that you get. Theoretically, there should be a big boost in, recognition, etc., to the folks who come out of Iowa and New Hampshire with wins. But I don't know how much either of them is that important anymore. I feel like, actually, the time period that this game was developed in, they were more important, and the time period prior to it, even more important. And the game doesn't reflect that very well at all. The best it does is with this, the matching funds, which are pretty minor, to tell you the truth. Now, what is it? It's like 2 turns later you get it too, which is kind of the weird thing. I think, if I'm correct with that, I should look that up, because I don't want to. Sometimes it's really hard to remember what these things work. But federal grants after each primary, 2 turns later, yeah. So we'll be recording what money people get, and that money is only going to count up until here, the $1 freebie. From then on, we're not going to get that anymore. And it's a little different calendar than it was in in that time period. Cruz went into Arizona. He has some exploit environment bonuses there. He also has, I'm missing some of the, I may not have given him all the votes he deserves in Colorado. I may have forgotten to score him that +4 that's up there. I got to really kind of pay attention. I gave him the Arizona this time, which is why I remember. Most of the people don't have much there, but he has a lot of. I get these anytime I visit somewhere. And let's see. I don't know if anybody else. We have some of the somebody's surrogate dropped off the map here. Fiorina surrogate, so she's going to have to buy another one if she has cash, and she does have a decent amount. You really do want to keep your surrogates, especially with the dark money rules that I'm playing with. The neat thing that's happening here, though, is Mr. Trump, at least, gets an option because environment and jobs are disappearing as issues. Now they go in the used issue pile, which means they can come back up, but he's going to get first shot at raising another issue. And if he's in the right position, he may raise something like civil rights or something to get all his bonuses. Well, he gets a big bonus in Arkansas, and that's about it. So he may want to look at other issues, see if he has anything that really helps him there, maybe cultural diversity. Well, these usually are not great issues. Anti-ethnics, Mississippi, Wyoming, he may want to hold off on this because it's just not where he wants to hit right now. The problem is it's really hard to time your issues to go where you want them to. And if you bring them up in advance, even if your calendar says, oh yeah, we'll be fine, we'll hit that then, you don't know, because issues could be brought up by the events that trash other issues. So that can be problematic as well. That's kind of one of the factors. One of the reasons you may not want the issue right at the beginning of the game is you don't get the doubling and tripling from any of these caucuses or primaries coming up. But it's probably worth jumping something. Maybe somebody will restart it, whatever. And that'll move us here to the end of January. He did not like the timing of the issues, so he held off. But Carson went with urban affairs. The reason for this, it doesn't give him any votes anywhere. Cost him $1, real money, because that's all he has. But he has the anti-welfare rights, I think, and nobody else has it. So, it's 2 debate points for him, and that'll help him face good old Mr. Trump, if it comes down to it. And then the next one was Fiorina, who chose finance, which is kind of cool for Carson because it gives him the rating automatic in New Hampshire. The reason she did it is it's really cool. It gives you rating once in Iowa and New Hampshire, and if I time that right, I can hit Iowa, get my rating there, and then go into New Hampshire maybe for the triple points, and boom, 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 I don't know, with a priority flight, maybe, if it's worth it. It's hard, you have to do some optimization math, and sometimes it's hard to do that because you get caught up in the simulation side of it, right? And you're saying, well, wait a minute, I should be going to New Hampshire. I got bonuses there, right? And you're in the story and you're in the simulation and you're like, well, wait a minute, I can actually go get more points, I don't know, in Detroit, which is a 7-point city over for Michigan, and just spend my money advertising. One thing it doesn't do, although this is okay because you tend to need lots of points in the big states, but it doesn't really prorate the advertising market, so there aren't cheap markets to get good advertising coverage. You can probably get quite a bit of advertising in any of the small states. I think if you did that, you'd have huge numbers show up in those small states, though, which would feel kind of weird. Although these don't seem to, in any reasonable way of trying to understand the game, they don't seem to correspond directly to vote count in any way. They're just a percentage of, the population that's coming out for you. And that percentage, if it's negative, is like still probably a positive percentage, just a very small one. Thing is, there's no real compulsion, and there's some strong disinclination to go into some of these states like Iowa or New Hampshire if there's something scary there. So like Bush says, too many people in there. I'm going to be competing with too many. I'm just going to, oh, hey, I already got a point that I got in there somehow. I don't remember how, but obviously I visited. Likewise with Rubio, he looked and said, I'm not good on the issues. I'm going to get slagged if I go in there and probably not gain that many points. So instead of competing, he spent a buck of dark money and threw a point into Iowa and I think a point into New Hampshire. And the New Hampshire, of course, is multiplied through his tools, through his organization. So Trump scared everyone out of New Hampshire, and these guys have kind of scared, especially Cruz, have scared people out of Iowa right now. No, actually, Cruz I don't think is the big one right now. He had his big oil points, but not sure anybody's terribly good on any of this stuff. So like Cruz has Cruz is the big guy. He has anti-banks 3 and balanced budget 2. You got to be careful because if you're constructing characters, if you take balanced budget, you're restricted. You can't do like tax cut and a bunch of things, public transportation, welfare, aid to welfare and stuff, the housing, all kind of stuff like that. You're only allowed like 10 points of that if you have any positive towards balanced budget. So, and it may actually decrease as you get higher on the balanced budget, which makes sense, but it's something you got to be careful of, which is why it's tough to have balanced budget and tax cut, because it kind of means you can't support other issues. So yeah, you've got like Rubio, who decided to go into Georgia because it's near South Carolina, and we're going to grab some votes in South Carolina. Yeah, that's a primary. Maybe we want to hit it bigger later when it's tripled. But right now it's kind of the question between South Carolina and Washington. Washington's a caucus. I can buy my way in. I know that Cruz was up there, probably scoring some fairly big points on it. Quite often when you're playing opposed, you're not really sure how many points people are put in places. They're big on the issues, but you don't really know what the effect of those issues is, which is why you do polling. And we might actually see some of that coming up fairly shortly. We'll decide. And so right now, though, aging, which is an issue that didn't help anyone, is aging out of the way. And we move into February. Okay, the turn starts. Carson brings poverty up. Trump passed on the opportunity to bring something up. And then we started Trump's turn, and he's spending to get his little buck, his 1 point in Iowa, and then he channeled the other points into New Hampshire, where he's got like a ×5 organization. It's not the turn of the primary right now, but it's close. Actually, he should have 2 points in Iowa, as should others who put in. So I'm going to have to look at that, because people put bits in and I forgot to put the multiplier. That's one of the problems, is the forgetfulness aspect, especially when you're playing with this. But, just all the issues out there and everything. It's hard to keep track of everything pertaining to your particular move, your character, whatever, at any given time. But I also wanted to come up because I found out why sometimes things don't make it into the database on my list on BGG. It's because sometimes BGG is down, and I record, hey, I own this, I get rid of my mails about it, and in this case, I just picked up an old Kinto game, and yeah, I couldn't add it to a geeks list because the server kept failing on it, and it may never end up on there because of that, or maybe it's actually on there and the server's reporting failure, and I've got like 3 copies of it listed, or 4 copies. I have no idea. Okay, so this was an ugly card that came up. Heavy snow in the Northeast. Everybody in Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, or New England loses a turn. Well, Carson bought a flight into New Hampshire, but he's not going to be allowed to take it because of this. Does he get the money back? I don't know, you know. But obviously, if there's a big snowstorm, I'm not going to be able to do a priority flight in there either, any more than people who are there and are stuck under the caucus of the snow. So this is going to affect the election in a big way, because this is at the same time as, well, it's one turn before the New Hampshire primary goes, and I was planning on jumping into New Hampshire. I think I'll get the buck back because, you know, well, see, I'm probably, it depends on how you're flying, right? What does a priority flight mean? Does it mean buying yourself a chartered ticket? Or, I think no matter what, if the service isn't provided, you're going to get your cash back. So we'll give him his buck back. Whether or not he gets normal movement, I'll say yes. You know, the pattern came in, although he was prepared for the flight. He can't change where he's going otherwise, but he can move around within the territories that he's in. It'll be the interesting time of the game. Cruz decides to get some good poll numbers out there and selects 100 electoral votes worth of states that he wants to poll. Now, everybody else has to absolutely tell the truth about each of these states. And someone else coming after him could say, oh yeah, well, I want to know Cruz's numbers, and go over the same list and get an absolutely correct poll. But Cruz is allowed to fudge his numbers by 30 in any direction. And it looks like he's mainly fudged upward. But so like in Iowa, Carson's got 68, Cruz has 54. The reality is Cruz is in third place here, but Fiorena's at 36, and it might cause her to generate more points. Likewise, you can see here, like New Hampshire, Trump's way ahead, but Cruz has slipped into second, probably with that 30-point padding, and other places. Largely, you want to throw positive, but sometimes you want to sucker people into a place where you've got a ton of votes, and sometimes it works, you know. Like I could see dropping Cruz's value in Texas, and that'll drain someone else there. The danger with that is, of course, somebody else might go in big enough to actually beat you. And because now they have an idea of what your maximum is if you pull a state that, whereas otherwise they might just let it pass, and you might get it fairly cheaply. But right now he has quite a bit in Texas. He has 57 votes or points in Texas, and nobody else is in there at all. But yeah, he looks really potent in this poll, but that's what controlling the polling is going to do. And now he's got to kind of decide what the heck he's going to do with that, because the key issue and what drove most of those polls was really the next races that are coming up, and he picked primaries that were of interest to him up to March 1st, and the caucuses, just for shits and giggles, because the way I'm doing it, the actual vote count does matter when you walk into the primary caucus, because those delegates are committed officially. Just went into South Carolina, one of the places where he has kind of one of these just generic bonuses I gotta try to remember about. And I'm not sure I remembered Carson's pluses in New Hampshire either. He built up an organization there, took a priority flight. He also started a new surrogate and went into Louisiana. Probably a bad move. I would have rather gone west. Kind of interested in the Nevada caucus, but I can always just throw money at that. I got a ton of money, and we're going to just unleash that cannon all over the place. And get, maybe drive a few people out of the race, and also win a few states, especially for Super Tuesday. The advertising money is just huge, but for the caucuses, I want to fire that off early, like not in the turn, and then fire up the rest of it in the primary race. But the biggie was I got this policy address, and that ended up going to Trump, and Trump killed Carson's new jobs issue to put drugs up. He doesn't give a shit about drugs, but it got rid of an issue that someone else cared about. And it's kind of this dicky thing you can do whenever you get that opportunity. Hey, if you don't want to waste one of your issues, it was a freebie to bring a new one up. Why not bring something up nobody cares about? Oh, fear of Trump down here in South Carolina. Everybody ran away and went to Washington. And none of them are any good at anything right now. So they went and debated this surrogate, whatever. I think Bush came out the winner of it overall. Basically, the Rubio surrogate debate was a wash, but Bush then won against each of them and actually scored more points than both of them. Washington's vaguely important. They should have been doubling the points there, because it was turn 1 of February. And I got to remember these things. Before we go any further, the Iowa caucuses have to be resolved because they're here in turn 1. And first thing is everybody has to announce that they have something in there. Now, here's the thing. The way the base game works, you just announce, hey, I have positive votes or not. And that allows you to score your matching funds. And you never find out who won the caucus till the end of the election. That is actually not how the caucuses work. They actually have a date and announce their votes. But the votes don't matter in the game terms, so that's how they handled it. But in my game, they do. Because the winner of the caucus actually has committed delegates. So we're going to look. And here in Iowa, Trump has 2. Carson has 68. I got him kind of jammed down into Kansas there. Cruz has 48. Fiorina has 36, and then 2 and 1. So everybody's going to get their Iowa money. Okay. Which means I'm not quite sure how to represent this, because this is going to get really complicated with some of these others. I'm going to have to figure out some way of noting who's getting what on what turn. Maybe little slips of paper on the turns. I don't know. Matching funds are done after we get to turn 3 here. Okay. I may give up buck matching funds on turns where no money is coming. I don't know if there are any. See, there are turns where no money comes in the base game. I don't remember where matching funds is like in a different area. Okay, so now we look up what Iowa is, and now normally this would be just winner take all, and it's determined at the end of the game because it's a caucus. But instead, what I've got is a proportioned caucus. So there's 6 points, and now I have to look at these. And people who are under 10% don't even bother of the total vote. So the total vote is 68 plus 2 plus 48 plus 36 plus 3 more. Okay, so that's our total, 157. Now, 157 divided by 68 is not a good number. How about 68 divided by 157? Okay, so that's going to be 43% of the score. Now, you don't do this in the base game. This is me making the game very much more complicated. Okay, so out of 6, that means 2 are going to go to Carson. Automatic. Don't worry, he'll be getting more. Okay. Now, 48 divided by 157 is 0.305 times 6, which says he's only going to get 1. So Cruz gets a vote there. 36, okay, times clear entry times 6 is going to be 1. So Fiorina is only going to get 1 vote. We're at 4 votes. Carson's going to get the other 2 remaining votes as the person with the largest proportion. Now, wait a minute. He didn't quite make half. If he had made half, yeah, this is proportional no matter what. So, what we're going to do is we're going to apportion these votes over here. And Carson 4, Cruz 1, Fiorina 1. Now, for whatever first round of balloting, unless people drop out of the race entirely, is in place, Carson's going to have his 4 votes, and these 2 are going to have their 1. But if somebody drops out, the additional votes go to whoever has the highest total in that state at the end of the game. So, this 68, 48, 36, those may not stand for determining, like let's say Carson's going to drop out of the race. Well, his 4 electoral votes from Iowa become important and might be worth fighting over, given that things are kind of close here. I don't know if I want to kind of note these values or not, because they are sort of our current standing in that state, and that's a known value as of the date. So these will be the base values that these guys have, and I'm not going to worry too much about the 2 and the 1. I mean, those are minor percentages that nobody has. But those other values, if state values go up, I want to keep track of those for some unknown reason. Okay, and that means that everybody placed at least enough to get a buck. Okay, and you could ask, well, if you couldn't even qualify, yeah, I know, but they made an effort, and that's good enough. I'll keep that rule in place. Anyway, we're going to move here, and I got to figure out how to score those, how to mark the money that's due each person on a given month. I think the way I'll do it is this was down here. I'll just write that all get a buck in the 3rd month, 3rd week of the month. At the beginning of the 2nd week of February. Trump's got a real problem. He's in the lead in New Hampshire, but he doesn't have a lot of cash. He's sitting here with only $9. New Hampshire's probably not worth dumping much of that money into, even though it's tripled this turn, and I'd crank out I got a ×5 multiplier. I think I want to throw some in though. The problem is whatever I do for advertising, I declare how much I'm spending in advertising. I just don't declare where it's going. People don't know what my multiplier is, stuff like that, necessarily. So there's sort of this interesting kind of dynamic in place where I'd like to throw a few bucks in just to make sure I get it. And one of the real problems, because time isn't the same for everyone, right? Trump was sitting here. He lost his turn on Carson's draw, which means the event doesn't really make sense, right? The event was a timed event, and honestly, all the events are timed events. They shouldn't happen on players' turns. So he got knocked out for this turn. Last turn, he wasn't doing anything. He moved to Massachusetts. Now he's knocked out of the New Hampshire primary, even though other people can fly into it. And Carson flew in. He had one-time votes and some other votes. He has a machine, the tripling number. Boom, he just slammed into it and basically has taken the lead, and we'll see that when it happens. He's also trying to work his way, I guess, down to Reno to score points on the Nevada caucus, which is coming up there. So for the week of the New Hampshire primary, again, the folks up here are kind of just drifting their way down, doing their thing, and all competing in the same place. But events are having a big effect. So, for example, the Japanese landed on Mars, which brought the space program up. But labor relations came up, and there was an oil embargo, which was huge amount of points for Cruz, obviously, down here. It really solidified him, especially in South Carolina. Even though he's not in South Carolina, the multipliers in place right now were significant. That's next turn, so those were doubled, and he's got all kind of engines built up to run that. But he got points all throughout the stuff bordering North Carolina, so he got a lot. But Rubio scored some significant points from Washington, getting himself a bonus organization out of them, and then won a debate against Bush here. Carson's surrogate ducked that one, but Bush was close enough that he's like, well, I'm probably not going to win Washington anyway, but maybe I can come in third. So that's kind of what happened, and now we're looking at let's score New Hampshire, and all kinds of money was pumped into New Hampshire. Rubio, Bush, and I think, did Cruz pump money in? Cruz chose to ignore New Hampshire. He's like, that's just a money sink. But the others did throw in big chunks of change because they had organizations or whatever. So we'll see how that one divides up. So New Hampshire is strictly going to be proportional. And our votes there are 91 for Carson. 74 for Trump. 67 and 32. So let's see what we have. 74 plus 91 plus 4 plus 67 plus 32, which means 268. All right. 74 divided by 268 is over a quarter. So Trump is going to score a point there. 91 divided by 268 is just 1. But he's got the plurality, so he'll probably get the overage. How about Rubio? Does he score out of this? He just barely does. And that means Bush is not going to get in there with his 32. So what we see is Carson gets 2 votes, and Trump and Rubio are going to split the other vote. So we score that over here with Carson at 2. Trump at 1 and Rubio at 1. And known values here. For these, I don't know why I'm squaring all these guys in. And now we worry about the absolute totals here. So first place was Carson, who is able to pull in $3, and that'll be down here. So Carson's going to get $3. Number 2 is Trump and then Rubio. So Trump gets a total of 2 and Rubio gets $1. Now this is a problem for other people, right? So we've got people who have minuses from the New Hampshire primary who didn't place in it. And that's basically everyone except these 3. Which means that we currently have -1s on, and I'll mark this here because these guys could lose all money. Cruz, Fiorina, and Bush. And that means if they both fail to get anything in the next one, they're screwed. They're out of cash. However, it should be pretty easy to guarantee that they get into Washington. This is the easy part of the race. Super Tuesday is where it turns to hell. And people need to be making sure pretty damn soon that they start padding away points in all those states. At least the caucus states. The primary states are more of a bitch because you've got to win most of them. And it could quite possibly happen that nobody gets further funding until they take what... let me see what the funding rule is, because you can regain it. So you have to come first or second in 2 consecutive primaries. But again, they're the most disadvantageous as possible to you. So coming in a couple of primaries at the same time at first or second in one of these big sets, that's not going to do it for you. And it's got to be primaries. You can't do it through caucuses because they just don't count. So we've apportioned these points. I should actually erase the 2 that have been decided, at least in terms of something. I don't know. Mark them off somehow. The problem is if I wanted to do the Democratic, a lot of the values are the same, but I don't think I want to. Okay. And I should probably have a running tabulation of what's going on. I don't need it yet. Carson's got 6 delegates? No. Yeah, 6 delegates committed to him. Cruz has 1. Fiorina, Trump, and Rubio each have 1. So clearly right now, Carson's winning this sucker, right? And obviously, if there are less characters, it's harder to drop out. It's harder to be knocked out, although it's still not inconceivable. But, you know, if you're playing with 3 players, as long as you put a buck into everything, as long as you have a positive bid, you're going to score. You're going to stay in the race. But getting knocked out of the race, getting knocked out of the automatic money in this may not be that terrible if you have a good war chest built up. Like a Cruz could actually fail. It's unlikely because he'll probably use his war chest to make sure he doesn't fail, because he's not going to get dark money or anything else if he fails in terms of the matching funds from here. Just that's the way I'm going to do this. So we move into the 3rd week, and that's going to be Washington, which is why everybody's up there, and South Carolina, which is why Cruz is like, I am the monster. Okay, let's send this one up.